I mean, that son of a bitch, you know, is really unbelievable.
Mr. Son of a bitch.
I mean,
Mr. Son of a bitch.
His royal. Yes, yeah, no, I never imagined that we'd ever have a president like this, and I hope we don't ever have another president like this again.
Anything to talk about. Kimmel was given each one of them was given a reset except for Seth. I didn't even know he was still on the air.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody did. Everyone's watching Forensic Files.
Yes.
No one's watching Seth.
One of the greatest shows ever.
Yeah, but these guys, they had opportunities to reset. Kimmel could have came back and tried to be funny again, or bring guests again, or show any kind of change, but they're really gonna ride this out to the last drop. What are they gonna do when he's...
Tyrus did something no one ever expected. He went straight after Jimmy Kimmel. Now, it seems the late night king might not be getting much sleep. Once a bouncer and now a well-known comedian, Tyrus isn't just joking around this time, he's making waves. The real question is, what did Kimmel do to provoke such a bold move? And why does it feel like Tyrus is gearing up to challenge all of Hollywood? Get ready, things are about to heat up.
The party, it's not the majority, it's the loud voices that scare people from saying what they believe and make you think twice about a joke or whatever, you know, these things. And, you know, a lot of their points are valid, but a lot of them are also just repulsive. And I mean, they repel people from, they go like, oh, you're no fun, I don't want to be around.
You won't want to miss what's coming next, so make sure to hit that like button and subscribe before we jump in. Tyrus had finally made his move, and it felt like a WrestleMania showdown, only this time, instead of throwing bodies in the ring, he was hurling words that hit just as hard. But his opponent wasn't some muscle-bound fighter in tight gear. It was something and someone much bigger.
Are they gonna be with Rosie O'Donnell in a 4-way Zoom podcast about Trump ruining their lives still?
I'm glad you didn't stop at 4-way. Although in my head, I can see it.
Come on, man, my mouth was open. Oh.
For Tyrus, the real challenge wasn't in the ring this time, but it was the delicate world of late-night television, led by none other than Hollywood's own Jimmy Kimmel. Kimmel, a man who seemed to stumble off every moral high ground he climbed and never met a cue card he didn't love, had finally caught Tyrus's attention.
I have one ex-wife. That's it. Okay.
Yeah, you.
I had some scruples. Okay. I'll have one night stands, but I will not marry people I don't love. Okay. There's a certain line there.
You can't teach this cracker that.
This rivalry was anything but balanced. Tyrus, a powerhouse of confidence shaped by years in both locker rooms and cable news studios, stood firm like a human tank. On the other side was Kimmel, the same man who once broke down in tears on live television and somehow mistook it for journalism.
If they're going to continue to do a podcast, they need to bring their writers in. Ooh. Because that was brutal.
Terrible. They're out of touch.
It's like listening to two billionaires complaining about no one had change for their $100 bill at McDonald's. You know,
The internet caught on almost instantly. This wasn't going to be some polite disagreement. What was unfolding wasn't a debate, but a full-blown war. It wasn't comedy anymore. It was a celebrity showdown, an unfiltered heavyweight match where the weapons weren't punches, but memes.
3 ex-lovers.
Yes.
Who just found out about each other. And they're all getting together to talk about the man they all still love.
Right.
And they're just sizing each other up, trying to figure out which one of us has the best shot to get back with him.
Yes.
They all get together, they compare notes, and they tell each other, yeah, you should never mention his name again. You should never mention his name again. You should never, does he call you? Doesn't call me? He texted me last week. Oh, so I'm still in the game. That's all this was. And that's why nobody cared.
Then came Kimmel, armed with a teleprompter packed with one-liners, his writers probably lifted from Reddit, and that trademark Hollywood smugness. He was ready to laugh at himself and everything else, hiding behind studio lights and applause cues while serving up his usual "I'm smarter than you" routine. Just as he began another round of self-righteous posturing, Tyrus stepped in. No flashy entrance, no canned laughter, just a sharp tongue and a heavy dose of reality. And when his words hit, they landed hard. From Los Angeles to late night Twitter, you could almost hear Hollywood's ego crack. Tyrus didn't just call out Kimmel, he dismantled his entire persona. Ever since gas was under $2, Kimmel's everyman comedy hasn't made sense. In his fantasy world, Mocking regular people counts as activism, and every cheap punchline aimed at conservatives is treated like an act of bravery. But in truth, his humor is the only unfair thing left. Repeating the same tired jokes about the same targets isn't bravery, Jimmy. It's recycling.
All I had was a crisp 100. They had no change. I was like, what is this world coming to? That's why I'm moving to Italy, girl. I know, me too.
Greg.
It's just...
Can I say something, Greg?
Tyrus saw right through the Hollywood smoke. He didn't call Kimmel out for fame or attention. He did it because someone needed to say what everyone else was thinking. On a studio set paid for by sponsors who still think TikTok is cutting edge, Kimmel's idea of punching up had become mocking Walmart shoppers while sipping overpriced wine. Tyrus's words hit differently because they didn't come from a think tank or a celebrity echo chamber. They came from a man who had fought his way to where he is, earning every inch without being handed a mic or a moral compass. Suddenly, Kimmel's whole persona started to look like an act. The moment someone he didn't like talked back, his funny guy with empathy routine crumbled. There's something deeply off when the same man who once made prank calls on live radio can't handle a little criticism from a Fox News commentator. The irony practically speaks for itself.
One government crossing guard goes,
How did you feel watching Kimmel cry?
One of his tears fell out. Hold on. It's funny how this derangement's working, because it only seems to work if you have a camera in front of you.
And then came the explosion. Supporters on both sides flooded social media, turning it into a digital gladiator arena. One crowd roared, "Tyrus just body slammed Hollywood," while Kimmel's defenders scrambled to dig up old clips from 2003 to prove he was once actually funny. Spoiler alert, there weren't many. But this was bigger than just two clashing personalities. It was a cultural tremor. A man who refused to play by Hollywood's rules had collided head-on with the self-satisfied bubble of showbiz. When Tyrus fired back with, "Maybe it's time you laughed at yourself," it was like he had late night by the throat. Kimmel's response? About as predictable as a cat avoiding a bath, more forced moral lessons dressed up as jokes. And strangely, that's exactly why people love Tyrus's words. He wasn't out for revenge, he was calling out hypocrisy. The same man who once mocked Hollywood's elite had now become one of them, living comfortably in a mansion built on jokes about people he doesn't even understand, while his sense of morality conveniently points toward whoever signs the next sponsorship check.
This club.
Yeah.
They just sit around, be funny, or they're setting up for when they're all canceled, their tour, their three-man show.
Yes.
Come watch us say how much we hate the president.
By this point, even Hollywood had to admit that Tyrus had a point. It was like watching the class clowns suddenly realize the joke's on him. For years, Kimmel had lived comfortably inside his bubble, delivering laughter as predictable as his hair dye. But when someone like Tyrus calls you out, there's no applause sign to hide behind. You could feel the tension rising as audiences began comparing Kimmel's scripted monologues to Tyrus's raw, unfiltered shots. And honestly, it wasn't even close. People joked, "Hey, Jimmy, maybe try smiling more and insulting fewer truck drivers this week." But once the internet caught the scent of weakness, it was game over. The memes hit harder than any joke Kimmel's told in a decade. Tyrus didn't just win the argument, he took control of the entire narrative. That's when the meltdown began, with Kimmel's defenders rushing to spin the story. Tyrus is just bitter, right? Because apparently pointing out that the emperor has no clothes now counts as resentment. In Kimmel's case, he's not just underdressed, he's out of original punchlines, recycling them like it's Earth Day.
The funniest thing about this whole thing is they act like he got into the White House, and right as he got in, he's like, your list that you wrote for him, for people to go get. It's like, ICE, here they are, go round them up. No one gives a frog's fat ass what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because if they did, they would have stopped that podcast immediately.
Yes.
The real twist in this feud was how clearly it exposed the thin line between comedy and activism, a line Kimmel has been stumbling over for years, pretending his punchlines are saving the world. When Tyrus stepped in, he cut straight through the act with one brutal reminder. No, man, the only thing you're saving is your ratings. From there, the internet did what it does best, blew everything up. Suddenly, this wasn't just a spat. It became a battle for the soul of comedy itself. People started choosing sides like it was a Marvel showdown. On one side stood Hollywood's moral gatekeepers, convinced that jokes need ethical approval. On the other, everyday people who just want to laugh without being lectured. Tyrus stood with them, the ones tired of being told their sense of humor is wrong. His response wasn't aimed at Kimmel alone. It was a strike against an entire system that confuses arrogance for intelligence and condescension for wit. And the best part, viewers are starting to notice. The ratings don't lie. No one wants to sit through comedy disguised as a sermon anymore. Imperfect as he may be, Tyrus represents something genuine. He's unpolished, politically incorrect, and unapologetically himself. And that's exactly why it works.
Expected to walk into work, stepping over, crying, to your credit, libtards.
Yes.
Like, oh, excuse me, up tear.
Yeah.
There we go. But it wasn't. Everybody went back to their lives.
Yeah.
So apparently the only way this heartbreak works is if you film it or force someone else to film it.
Right.
But to your point about Carson, we never knew his political affiliation because he was there to make everyone laugh. All the late night shows were.
Hollywood just doesn't know how to handle someone who doesn't care about fitting in. For Kimmel, being liked is everything. It's the core of his identity. But Tyrus, he couldn't care less. And that's exactly why he wins without even trying. Instead of understanding that, Kimmel completely missed the point. He doubled down on arrogance like someone trying to put out a fire with gasoline. Clearly rattled, he fought back the only way he knew how, by pretending to be above it all. But the truth hits hard, especially when it's wrapped in a sharper punchline than your own script. By now, even neutral viewers could see the pattern. Every one of Kimmel's comebacks sounded like a tired rant. People were craving authenticity, not the kind of fake empathy squeezed in between sponsor messages. Tyrus reminded everyone what comedy used to be: wild, fearless, and willing to challenge anything. When he tore down Kimmel's fake moral pedestal, it was like someone finally turned on the lights in a room full of artificial glow. Kimmel's fans didn't know how to react. Some called it jealousy. Others tried to dismiss it as irrelevant, but the irony was clear. You don't trend for days by being irrelevant. And when Tyrus exposed just one uncomfortable truth, it was enough to make the entire entertainment machine start to glitch.
Clown went all in on ignoring reality and blames MAGA.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
So MAGA is desperately trying to portray Kirk's killer as not one of them. If that man was any more full of shit, he'd be a colostomy bag. That was 2 days ago, so Kimmel had the chance to walk it back, but he can't.
It's almost poetic when you think about it. Kimmel built his career by mocking others, and now, unintentionally, he's become the punchline himself. Every attempt he made to seem unbothered only exposed how shaken he really was. The internet can always smell fake confidence, and to them, his calm facade reeked of fear. Meanwhile, his PR team is in full panic mode trying to contain the damage, while Tyrus sits back and relaxed, undefeated, and probably scrolling through memes of himself roasting Hollywood. He doesn't need to win the feud officially. His victory lies in the fact that he's living rent-free in the mind of a man whose entire job is to make others laugh. In a way, it's poetic justice. Once upon a time, Kimmel's jokes had an edge. Now they're sanitized, HR approved, and stripped of honesty. After being called out by someone unafraid to speak the truth, Kimmel was finally seen without the safety net of his audience. The whole situation serves as a reminder that comedy is a two-way street. If you can dish it out, you'd better be ready to take it. And that's what stung the most. For all of Kimmel's talk about humor and resilience, it turns out the only jokes he can handle are the ones that come from him.
Should be fired because it was such a big murderous election on one side that it should have been a reset. Because when it happened in 20, when he lost and Biden got in, I don't remember us doing an episode on coping skills. There was no line in the audience where I was like, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. We just like, well, let's keep going. And I believe we made fun of the situation and ourselves. So I always tell people, try to be the bigger man, which is ironic. But
impossible.
In this case, because the poor sportsmanship is coming from TV, normally I would say you can have one lap and smell your flowers, but go ahead and take.
Tyrus walked away from the clash with more fans, more respect, and the satisfaction of tearing down one of the biggest myths out there, the idea that money equals authenticity, that constant publicity means perfection, and that fame automatically makes someone wise. And when the man delivering that message is Tyrus, you know, it's not just talk and he doesn't throw light jabs, he lands knockout blows. The metaphor couldn't fit our times better because as this feud plays out, it's clear that Tyrus isn't just battling Kimmel, he's pushing back against an entire culture built on scripted kindness, fake smiles, and jokes padded with disclaimers. Kimmel can keep his applause signs and studio safety nets. Tyrus already holds what every comedian secretly wants. Genuine authenticity that hits harder than any pre-written gag, and no matter how many monologues Kimmel performs or how often he tries to reinvent himself as America's funny uncle, the shadow of this feud will follow him. A lasting reminder of the moment someone called out the act and made it stick.
Tonight, Jimmy Kimmel returned to his show and gave a self-pitying, tearful non-apology. But I gotta say, it's nice to see someone crying at Kimmel's show besides the audience. Kimmel failed to correct his lie that Charlie Kirk's assassin was a MAGA supporter, but he cited Jesus as inspiration for forgiveness. True, Jesus forgave his executioners, but Jesus also cast demons into a herd of...
Something invisible had suddenly been exposed, and once it was, there was no turning back. Hollywood, faced with a dose of reality, crumbled faster than one of Kimmel's cue cards. What Tyrus did wasn't just a personal call-out, it was a public unmasking of the entire circus. The hollow moral preaching, the staged outrage, and the belief that celebrity opinions somehow carry more weight than common sense. Kimmel may have been the face of the feud, but the target was much larger. Tyrus wasn't just talking to one man, he was speaking to an entire industry that hides behind applause signs and polished monologues, mistaking performance for principle. When he tore through Hollywood's illusion, it looked effortless, like a wrestler ripping through cardboard. The crowd loved it, not because it was cruel, but because it was real. In a world overflowing with artificial smiles and moral lectures, Tyrus's blunt honesty felt like fresh air. The sneer on his face wasn't arrogance, and it was the truth staring back at the system that had long forgotten what truth even sounded like. And that's why this clash resonated so deeply. For years, Kimmel thrived inside a bubble where jokes were safe, predictable, and carefully tested. But when Tyrus showed up, the mask slipped. Suddenly, the man who mocked others was being forced to laugh at himself, and he couldn't. That's when people realized something bigger was happening. This wasn't just another celebrity spat, it was a cultural reset. Maybe years from now, people won't remember it as a scandal, but as the moment a single man told Hollywood's favorite comedian to sit down, drop the act, and face the mirror. For the first time in a long while, the laughter wasn't scripted, it was honest.